Welcome to the show about all things making music, from the creative process and workflow to gear and recording techniques. I'm your host, Brian Funk, musician, producer, Ableton certified trainer, and author of the 5-Minute Music Producer. Let's learn to become better music makers. Welcome to the Music Production Podcast. Today I'm speaking with Jxmie Blake, an Ableton certified trainer who teaches music production and songwriting at 1500 Sound Academy. Jxmie specializes in using Ableton Push as a musical instrument and has an amazing interactive push course called Shapes and Progressions. Jxmie and I spoke about his work as a music educator and his creative philosophies around experimentation, rule breaking, and remembering to have fun while making music. Please welcome Jxmie Blake to the Music Production Podcast. Jxmie, welcome to the show. Good to have you.
Ryan, thanks for having me. Good to be here.
Yeah, man, I'm very excited to talk to you. We got to meet in person in Pasadena, which was fun for me. First, thanks for coming out. That was really cool to see you there. I think you added a nice energy to the room, and I was looking forward to meeting you, talking to you at some point in the future anyway, just because I follow your work and I love what you do. So it's great to have you and spend some time.
Thanks, man. Likewise. It's always good to connect with, Ableton community names and faces you're familiar with and, get to connect in person. So it's great to meet you.
Yeah, you too, man. It was a lot of fun being there in California at the Ableton headquarters where you were there, Chuck was there, Alberto, and, various other people just kind of showing up throughout the day, throughout the weekend. It's so nice to be around that, and because this gets kind of solitary sometimes. You're just in front of your computer. Making music used to be with people, and now you can do it all by yourself. So it's nice to have that.
For sure. And it's like, it's pros and cons. We've never been more connected or maybe more in isolation. It's possible to connect with people all over the world, but, it's not necessarily like a substitute for in-person sharing and conversation, and you almost pick up a lot even just from what's not said, just being in a room and witnessing things.
Yeah, absolutely. That happened like crazy that weekend for me.
Yeah.
No, Chuck was there a couple days, and just like kind of watching him work, you're like, okay, he's got something going on there, and it was a lot of fun to just pick up on his energy. And I think he said he came too just because other people were working and he wanted to be around that. And kind of like when you go to like a coffee shop or something to like do your work because other people are working.
Man, that's kind of a genius idea. Ableton had a coffee shop where the whole point was you drink coffee and work on music, hang with people.
They practically do, because there's that coffee shop right underneath it. So.
And the jazz trio. The jazz trio comes out in the evenings.
Yeah. Yep. Nice way to end the night.
Yep, for sure.
So I got to tell you, I've, since we saw each other, had a chance to really dive into your push course, the Shapes and Progressions. And it's fantastic. It's, first of all, just as like a teacher as well, I thought just genius idea to have the videos inside of Live and have those MIDI clips that you're playing in real time in the video lighting up my push, so I can follow along with you and see what you're doing both on the screen and on push and just kind of play along with you. It's just such a great delivery, and it's really made me see playing it as an instrument a little bit differently, maybe just a little deeper even than I already felt about it. Because for me, it looks like a guitar fretboard mostly. And to see you go over it and talk about all the inversions and different shapes you can use was great exercise, great practice. So fantastic job on that.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that, and appreciate you checking it out. That was a pretty grueling, labor of love kind of thing at times, where it took a lot of retakes and then a lot of, oh, what if I did this? I could add this. And I really think over the years, I've been teaching music production and songwriting and, playing instruments from kids as young as 8 up to, now I teach young adults, and a lot of high profile, CEOs, celebrities, and everything in between. And honestly, that class was a culmination of all of my experiences teaching and demonstrating, an instrument that changed how I approach music. And as a drummer, I never took piano lessons. I did like one independent study for a couple months, like during community college. But push was really a thing that just kind of clicked. And the more I put time into it, it was like a direct relationship of how much I improved. So to be able to share that with students who, are younger and maybe don't learn or don't have an interest in learning, like from traditional instruments, all the way up to, CEOs of billion-dollar companies who don't have the time to sit down and learn a piano, but they love push and they love Ableton
Mm.
and they want to play chords. And that group of people exists out there. And I feel really fortunate to be able to connect with so many people who want to express themselves and want to participate really in music and never felt like they had access to the tools or to the instrument that could allow them to express themselves.
That's an awesome crowd to tap into because I count myself as part of that, especially as a kid. I didn't play in high school band. I didn't, wasn't interested, didn't see myself as a musician or anything. I enjoyed music, but it wasn't until like a friend showed me a song on guitar, Enter Sandman by Metallica. And it was like, oh, wow, you can play the stuff you like to listen to. Because the only music I ever saw getting played was in band with kids that I knew my age that had to play these old songs we didn't even know, or we weren't listening to classical music. So it didn't have any appeal. But once I got into guitar, it was everything.
Yeah.
But there was no outlet from the school other than we had a talent show once
Yeah.
a year. And
Yeah.
that was the big thing for our band. Like, we got to make the talent show. But to represent those people, because there are a lot, and especially probably even more so now because of all the like people that are into like making hip hop and beats and other kinds of music besides just rock and roll that wasn't available to kids in band. It's really cool you're doing that because you're opening the door to so many people that might fall in love with it.
Yeah. And I mean, music has come a long ways over history. It wasn't always as accessible to everyone. I mean, we've been telling stories with, melodies for as long as we've existed. But in terms of like, where it's come from since, civilization has evolved, we're now at a point where to make something that sounds comparable, both mix wise, production quality, recording quality. I mean, you could do it at home. A lot of people do it at home. And we had the bedroom producer kind of explosion thing happen. And we had young people using FL, that they just downloaded a crack copy of and or use GarageBand off their parents' computer and boom, like that's all it takes. So there's kind of this, at least from my perspective, a lot of people who have a great ear. This is usually the case where people's taste and their ear for music is more advanced than their technical abilities. And that's kind of where the friction occurs a lot of times is people want to participate with music. The tools are accessible. You have them. You can grab loops. And then for a lot of people, there's this wall of, okay, but it's not exactly what I'm trying to say. This is not exactly how I feel
Mm.
because we're stuck with the choices that have been made, the loops that are included, the splice packs that are available, versus understanding the language of music and being able to actually articulate anything and then say, "Oh, whoa, that's exactly what I'm feeling at this moment, and it came from me." And that's a really powerful thing. And it's not something that most people sit down and go, "Oh, how exciting! I want to learn music theory." But it's
Yeah.
something that when you make the connection of this is a path to more creative freedom and freedom of expression, that can and has helped in the past get people to start on that journey.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the on ramp to that highway is way more accessible.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
like playing guitar, it took a while to get going, like your fingers hurt and you don't know anything about music and beats and rhythms and chords or anything. So it was a little bit of a slow start, but now, like you said, you can really just like open up something like GarageBand, drag some loops in it, and it sounds like pretty comparable to what you
Yeah.
hear, streaming on Spotify, on the radio, or whatever, wherever you get your music. That it just wasn't like that not
Yeah.
too long ago.
No, it's relatively fresh. It's kind of like we went through this whirlwind of evolution and technological changes, and we looked up, and here we are. We have stem separation and 50 different companies supplying us tools to do things that were just a dream. I'm sure
Mm.
when you and I were first stepping into music production.
Yeah, I have all my dreams come true from those days when like I could play the drums in time. I wish I could
Yeah.
sing in tune. I wish like the recording quality was better. And now we have everything and a million and one tools to do it. And
Yeah.
now that's actually the problem now, I think. There's just too much that we have.
Well, yeah, and then you realize that even with everything, if you're still not happy with what you're making, it's might be something to do with your outlook or your expectations or your honesty with yourself, kind of flips back inwards.
Yeah. How many times I've thought I was buying something that was going to answer all my problems, and well, now I'll make my hits, and now my music will be exactly how I want it to be,
Yeah.
only to find out that's not true.
And it's like, it's a relationship with that because it is
Mm.
inspiring and it is useful. If it saves you time, if it makes something better objectively, or it's fun, it engages you. But yeah, I've bought and sold way more pieces of music gear than I actually have held on to and used today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's in a way part of the challenge too. I bought a lot of like garbage gear, garbage guitar pedals or like stupid recorders back in the old
Yeah.
days
Yeah.
that you were stuck with. Once you open the package, you were stuck.
Yeah.
I mean, now you just send it back to Amazon. They'll take anything, really,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
most music stores will be happy to take anything you buy. But it, I did learn my gear maybe a little deeper in those days because that's what I had, and I had to figure out how to make it work.
And that, man, I'm glad that you brought that up because a lot of work I've been doing, especially over the last year, is developing tools inside of Ableton and working with Ableton on some of the factory stuff, some of the presets, and just kind of, you know, giving my input and sharing things based on feedback or time consuming things or confusing things for new users, as well as wishes from really high level established users. And that's something that I think it's easy to overlook the power of like all stock devices or just really getting into whatever it is that you have. That's how you
Mm.
get people like Tom Morello and the things he did with a guitar. It's the same things that a lot of other guitar players had, but he got something different out of it. Or, like McGee, he's like a newer artist. Same
Mm.
thing where he's getting tones and textures that it's the same tools everyone else has, but it's like how you use those tools. And then you learn about, producers and, I've had friends show me patches that were all stock and you just wouldn't really believe it. And we get this idea in our head. Maybe it's because it's, the type of Western culture, capitalist mindset that we're kind of all brought up in, at least in the West, where something costs money or it's expensive or looks a certain way. So therefore it must be worth that versus like it's almost a mindset of like, oh, we have Taco Bell at home, where
Yeah.
you could make it in stock. It's not like
Right.
exciting all the time and it takes effort. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of value to that because you extract core processes and ideas that translate. And I think the
Mm.
process of troubleshooting and creative problem solving is super valuable in any situation, whether you're doing music or content, video, writing, recording. It's yeah,
Yeah, not having the gear or the tools is not an excuse anymore because you've got more than anyone's ever had with GarageBand, with even an iPhone. It's just already there.
For
There's
sure.
plenty. Um, and I've said this on this show before, where, when I first got a computer to make music, I got real good at cracking software. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
suddenly I know all the dark corners of the internet and had all these like flashy tools with, really cool graphics and looked like a different spaceship every time you opened a new plugin. But I didn't know how to use any of it. And
Hmm.
one of the best things I did for my own music making was just get rid of it and just learn what was in live. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm just going to learn the stock stuff because what business do I have with all this other stuff if I don't even know how to use the basic things yet? And that's when I finally started really progressing and making noticeable progress.
Yeah. And I think it's empowering too. It's like a confidence building thing. There's
Yeah.
maybe early on, especially if looking under the hood of, complicated instrument racks isn't like interesting to you naturally. I think you can get there just by building some
Mm.
confidence and just one at a time, just really slowly keeping that signal flow mindset kind of there. And Ableton lends itself, I think what makes it unique is it lends itself to people who are very mathematical and logical thinking, but also just wildly creative, the opposite end of the spectrum. And there's kind of this intersection where you can use systems and signal flow and modulation and routing in really creative ways and create things that are only possible through that medium.
Mm.
Yeah.
Were you saying you were working on some of that material, like some of the presets and stuff that's coming with? Were you working with Ableton themselves, or just did you mean just kind of like in your own experiments?
Yeah, yeah. So it started, well, let's see, maybe 2 years ago. I had some time to recover on the couch because I broke a couple toes and had to take it
Mm.
easy. So I got into developing max patches and going crazy with Push 3 standalone compatible racks. And it had been requested from, a producer who I was working with he's like, I just want something crazy. Give me some insane, presets that nobody has. And I found myself with the time and I just spent like the better part of, I don't know, 5 or 6 months just
Mm.
going, diving deeper than I ever had into making racks, making, presets, and then getting back into Macs. I hired a fantastic Mac certified trainer, Philip Meyer. He's a guy in
Oh yeah,
LA.
yeah. I know
And
of his work. He did what's we should shout out the pack he's got.
the MIDI
Um,
tools.
MIDI tools, right?
Yeah, Philip Meyer MIDI tools. Yeah, shout out Philip. Yeah, and he just saved me a lot of time. A
Yeah.
few hours with him and getting some notes from him helped me kind of fast track some of the things I was just working on. And so flash forward, I don't know, 6 months into doing this, and I met, one of the heads of the sound team from the Berlin office. He was here for NAM. I was hanging with Jesse. He was showing me something. Well, he's actually showing me Move. We can even talk about it now. He brought by the Move to show me, and I met another gentleman from the Berlin team. And then we just stayed in touch. And I hit him up for lunch when I was in Berlin. I was shooting a video. My partner and I, Kiana, did a Push 3 performance. So we're over there to film, and I reached back out to the guy from the sound team and said, "Hey, I'm around." And then we ended up getting into this long session with some of the sound team in Berlin. A few more of the people came out and testing out some new stuff for them while we were there and giving some feedback and just showing them a lot of these racks that I was making for people here in LA and showing them some of these Max devices. And some of it was emulating and reverse engineering a little bit on my part of a very beloved sound of a clipper in a in a certain DAW and trying to bring that into live. So long story short, they were excited about everything that I showed them, and we kind of just kept in touch. And then that turned into doing some official work, of various degrees on some of the factory library content.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. So, and I hear that a bit from people. Like they start going into their own experiments, and it seems to be like a way. I think a strength of Ableton as a company. They listen, they pay attention, and they're watching what users are doing, and they see like your work. And like, ah, that's cool. Maybe we can get you to make some stuff for us.
Yeah, and I feel like I kind of have a responsibility in being in a position where, I work with hundreds of young people who are maybe just starting out in Ableton, coming from other DAWs or just getting into production in the first place, and seeing kind of the common hangups or the common trends and what's difficult or what's flat out unappealing,
Mm.
combined with working with Grammy award winning producers and artists who have their own wants and needs and ways of doing things inside of Ableton. So being able to kind of fuse what I'm seeing and what's in demand from new users as well as people who have been using it at a professional level, a high level. And yeah, just felt responsible to, to share.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're helping shape it and shaping how it's getting used and how people interact with it. Because there is like a suggestion in a lot of these devices of like what to use, how to operate it, even if as simple as like which macros you choose, which knobs you allow people to turn, and
Yeah.
the limitations you put on them. I think a great example of that people would be familiar with is just Autotune.
Yeah.
How they allowed you to tune it to 0 milliseconds so that you get that really stepped quantized voice thing that has become a real, just, I don't know, it's everywhere, right? Like since it's been in so much music for so long, but the original program was kind of like, I don't think anyone would want to do that. We're trying to use Autotune to make it sound like a natural singer's singing in tune.
Right. Right.
And then stuff like that. Because of that kind of permission to go to that extreme, you get surprises along the way.
For sure. Yeah. Also, shout out to AutoShift. I've been loving using AutoShift.
Yes. And we Ableton Live users had to wait probably about as long as any other DAW to get an auto tune device in there, but it's really put together nicely and it's useful. It's got the like live performance thing that, Ableton was built on in
Well,
it
and
so that you can use it.
you can use it on Push 3.
Yeah.
To me, that's crazy. It's like you have a portable auto tune.
Right.
Yeah.
Plug the mic in and there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've made a rack that people can download meant for like live vocals, and it's got harmonies because it's just like a stack of them, chains of them together, and they're separated by like fifths and thirds and an octave, I think, are the harmonies. But it's just so fun because you got like a knob, you turn the volume up on, and then your harmony comes in.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
No, it's inspiring.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it makes you do things you just like wouldn't normally do. And,
Yeah. And I think having a healthy dose of that helps keep, you know, music making interesting and fun.
mhm.
Versus if you did the exact same thing. I mean, even if like you ate chocolate cake and it's like your favorite thing in the world, but you had the exact same thing every single day, the same way, the same amount. I don't know. To me, maybe there's some people out there who would love that, but I feel like at a
Eh,
certain point you got to switch it up. You got to try something different. Maybe chocolate mixed with something. Maybe a totally different flavor. But yeah, having that balance of like keeping some parts of your process or your creative, workflow consistent and the same, but then also maintaining a consistency in something new, something different, something unexpected, because that feels fun and it reduces the amount of like decisions you feel like you have to make.
mm. Yeah, I've got myself set up pretty nice here where I'm comfortable. I know where things are. I know what's plugged in where, and it's fast. I've got templates and devices that connect things that really do smooth out the process. And if I want to run something through like one of these guitar pedals next to me, it's an external device. It's already programmed. Just drop it in and you're going.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's nice to just mix it all up, even just take the laptop, maybe like a MIDI controller, and go somewhere where I don't have access to all this stuff.
Yeah.
Or even to just every once in a while, you just rearrange your studio and that just gets you thinking differently. But a little bit of novelty goes a long way. Sometimes it's just like, I just don't want to I'm in a basement right now. So, it's cool. It's like a little cave almost, but sometimes you don't want to be in the cave. You
Yeah.
want to get out a little bit. And I find those are usually really productive sessions. The mind is just operating differently.
Oh yeah. I even at one point, because I had never done this maybe the first 7 or 8 years of producing on a laptop and using Ableton, but I just started like making beats in bed. Like, because I wake up so early sometimes, like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, just I don't know why. My body tells me it's time to get up. And some mornings, I'll just make a little coffee and then just lay back down with the laptop, put headphones on, and just try to make something. And not really worry too much about putting it in a box or that it needs to be some certain thing. And man, just like you said, like I would get really great results with that because there's no pressure. I'm still kind of tired. I'm not really emotionally attached. I just feel awake and ready to go. And, it's, I don't know, something about being in bed still. There's still this sense of relaxation. And so it's like I'm creating in a relaxing way. But
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, I think you just said something important worth highlighting is like, it doesn't have to be anything. Sometimes when you sit down in your seat with the equilateral triangle of speakers in your head and you're in your mixing spot and now I'm doing it, now I'm producing music,
yeah,
capital letters,
yeah.
but a lot of fun things happen when you're just fooling around playing and there's no actual goal. You're just seeing what happens.
And I think for people who are, independent artists or working by themselves or working in their home spaces, that's a beautiful place to be in because you can be uninhibited and allow yourself the freedom to go through and try all ideas and not worry about what's going to be great and then just recognize something great when it comes along versus you're only waiting till you're inspired or you're only going to finish something that you love right away
Hmm.
because I've seen that and experienced that plenty of times where that's what stops you from creating is you're kind of lying to yourself in a way. You're not being honest with yourself because we have a lot of ideas inside of us and not all of them are going to resonate with us the most, but to me, it's more valuable to get the idea out and just let it live and breathe versus stopping when it's not the idea you were hoping for, you know?
Mm. Yeah, right. Because you can easily miss something really cool. There's this like kind of alternate path, but you're like, well, it's not going to get me to that like particular genre I'm working in or move my project forward.
Right.
But you get the surprises.
Yep.
You kind of mentioned this before we started. You mentioned like in your classes. What classes do you teach, by the way?
So I've been in LA now just the last 4 years after being in Seattle for 8 years or so before that. And about a month after I moved here, I was teaching at a school remotely during COVID, came down when everything opened up. And I got a call from someone at Ableton asking if I was familiar with 1500 or nothing. And I was like, yeah, of course. And it was, they're last teacher was moving on to something else, and they needed someone to come teach production and engineering and mixing and songwriting. Well, a couple other classes as well. But so, yeah, I started about a month after I moved here, and to work at a school, teach at a school that was founded by two people I've looked up to for a long time, Rand Stopson and James Fauntleroy. Um, and yeah, just seeing them present at Loop was the first time I heard them speak outside of just hearing the music that they've made. Um, their school definitely echoes a lot of the same sentiments that the crowd walked away from when I saw them speak back in like 2018. Um, but long story short, yeah, at 1500 Sound Academy, I teach production. So that's all Ableton, music theory, um, engineering. So we record in Pro Tools, mostly just recording vocals, tuning vocals, editing vocals, and then songwriting and mixing.
Hmm.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep.
So that's a pretty wide range of topics too. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So you were mentioning that a lot of the discussions, even though you're in the studio, even though you got the gear, wind up getting back to things like creativity and like um, workflow and process, and not so much the technical aspects.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not 50-50, it's pretty close. But,
Yeah.
a lot of times people, students who I work with, they'll get writer's block or they'll have a bunch of songs and perpetually continue revising them, you know, and people are at different points in their path. And that's how I've started kind of looking at it over time is not so much that people are inherently better or worse or their music's, more successful and theirs isn't, but it's almost always correlated with the journey. And some people are able to take the journey and the path of putting the time in to learn production and arrangement and songwriting and recording and getting those 10,000 hours in. But sometimes people will spend 10,000 hours in using bad practices or not being honest with themselves or some blockage in the way, preventing them from being completely open and honest about what their expectations are and what is needed to be done, in terms of time spent on the court, getting in the gym and
Mm.
putting the hours in just to get to where they want to go.
Mm.
Yeah, and with that is life is always happening all around us. And for any of us who are musicians, we're people. We're sons and daughters and, members of communities. And all of that always plays into people's ability to create and people's attitudes towards creating. Some people use it as a form of escape. Some people use it as therapy. Some people just want to be recognized. Some people want to make
Mm.
a lot of money. Some people want to, most people, the common thread is they want to express themselves and share something that will make other people feel like they're not alone. Because
Mm.
ultimately, that's what music does for all of us, that makes it meaningful and gives it meaning. We have songs that indicate times in our lives or play certain roles to the soundtracks of our lives. And it's a extremely powerful thing. And yeah, whatever we can do to help people with whatever that is. Sometimes it's a technical question, and other times it's a mindset thing. Other times it's a metaphysical, spiritual, emotional, philosophical thing. Um, but I think for me, and I'm not the wisest person. I'm not, the most experienced, but a lot of the times it's ourselves getting in our own ways to an extent. Obviously, there's external
Mm.
factors that we can't control, but a lot of the time it's something to do with our mindset or us getting in our own way to some degree.
Mm.
Yeah.
I think when I was first starting out, it was a lot more technical stuff. How do I do this? How do I connect this audio track? How do I record? And, that kind of stuff. How do I play the guitar even, or
Yeah.
all of that. But as I've gotten further along, my problems definitely are more these mental, creative, judgmental, all of that stuff is, I don't know if it's that you're so distracted by learning the new things, the technical things, the how to play and how to use the software, whatever it is, that you don't realize you're having these things because you kind of, as you're learning, like, oh, this is how you like create like a MIDI part. Cool. And then you made something and you weren't even worried about if it was good. You were just trying to make something.
Right.
But then once you have that, it's like, okay, now I can really only focus on what I'm making in the process. And I don't know, it just blows my mind that that's so hard. And I can think back to being younger and like, I just pumped stuff out and didn't even think twice sometimes.
Yeah.
And now here we are. And like I am so much better off in so many levels and crippled.
No, yeah. Yeah. There's kind of a beautiful stage in the journey where you haven't learned a bunch of rules yet. As we get
Yeah.
these boxes and frameworks, the more that you learn about things. And that to me is what it means to learn the rules, to break the rules. Is when you're starting out, you're inherently breaking rules because you don't care. But we got so many amazing production aesthetics and techniques that people still use today because of that. And because of that, not knowing that that's not what you're supposed to do and just going off of the pure instinct of, well, does it sound good? And to me, I'm at a point now where my undergrad was in audio engineering, I have a master's in music and music production, and I've spent a lot of time doing everything related to the creative process, recording, writing, mixing, producing, performing. But I think after feeling like, okay, this is how I'm supposed to record vocals or how I'm supposed to arrange a record or how I'm supposed to layer things and mix things if I want, this certain outcome. And it kind of feels stifling at times and it can lock you into, I guess, habits that can be healthy to break out of from time to time. Because
Mm.
as soon as the process begins feeling mundane or like it's just a repeat of the last 100 times that you did it, I think that reflects in your work, whether or not you're consciously aware of it. So having some element of keeping it fresh and breaking the rules and doing things that you're not supposed to do, having learned where the boundaries are and how things ought to be done, I get so much inspiration off of like people like Mr. Bill when I found his channel, or go listening to like Dan Worrell about like the absolute mathematical textbook of like how
Yeah.
something is. And that's beautiful. But then I'll take something he says and turn around and go just do something crazy with it, because that's exciting to me, just phase canceling things and extracting artifacts, and it might be a texture and it's 2% of the overall sonic makeup of something I'm working on, but it was the starting point, or it was the
Mm.
thing that made an idea come about. And to me, it's that process of you kind of feel like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Like one time I put like 10 utilities in a row, all turned up plus 35 dB to just
Yeah.
extract, it's like a Mr. Bill trick, like at the end of it. And I remember doing that. I was like, that is so rad. Like, but you're not supposed to do this. So then I went on this whole rampage and I'm like, I'm going to take the metronome sound, the original classic one, and make every instrument out of it. Awesome. I'm going to introduce feedback and resample that and turn that into a bass. Awesome. And it just kind of opens up source material and possibilities that you wouldn't get to necessarily had you not understood the rules and then intentionally manipulated or broken them in a way that, hopefully doesn't cause hearing damage, and did something creative with it. And something about that is fun. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost rebellious.
Yeah.
It's and it is like it's so easy to do, I guess now. Like I couldn't string together 35 distortion pedals 'cause I don't have 35 distortion pedals, but I could do that with devices in the computer and just boom, 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 and see what happens and,
Yeah.
get the problems that actually are the solution, the fun thing that sparks the idea.
Yeah.
I guess for me, it's been so much in like just sampling things and running them through effects and really recklessly fast too. I'm working on I've got a kalimba. I'm working on a pack of sounds with a kalimba,
Yes.
and it's like the first couple I sample them nice and make a nice kalimba instrument, cool. And I ran them through my cassette tape player, and I'm like, all right, that's kind of cool. It's not as good technically as the clean ones. It's a little distorted, and sometimes it almost sounds like a square wave.
Yeah.
But then it's like, all right, now I'm just gonna like throw like 5 random plugins on and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna warp it as far as it goes. You drag that warp marker and then the screen is scrolling and scrolling and then it finally
Yeah.
stops. And it's like, cool, got it. And just consolidate that. And then you put that in the sampler and you're like, wow, like this was a kalimba a minute ago. And now it's, like an asteroid belt of sound. And then
Man.
so often I'm not making my instruments anymore. I'm like, okay, now I'm making a song. And you just get like pulled into it.
For
Um,
sure. For sure.
I think for me, I really try to notice, especially lately, just, hey, I got excited, so I'm going there,
Right.
instead of like, because I think sometimes I get responsible. I'm like, well, that was cool, but, I got to finish this thing. I'm working on something here. But now it's just like, nah, just get
No,
on the spaceship and
I
go.
want that reckless kalimba. Forget
Yeah.
responsibility. We want reckless kalimbas.
Yeah. And that was really the goal. Like, I'm sure there's kalimba instruments out there.
Yeah.
I'm not creating something that's never been, I mean, the thing exists to begin with. So
Yeah.
that's the starting point, I guess. I'm going to build an instrument and then I'm going to like get more and more progressively weird and crazy with the samples and with the sounds
Yeah.
until we're just not even in the same universe anymore.
Yeah. I think my contribution to the recklessness of instrument and device making, I made this thing recently called, I'm calling it a sample recycler.
Mm.
And I was reading in the live object model like a year ago, and it was probably put in there before then, but you have access to a lot of the parameters, the warp parameters inside a simpler. So like slice by, the region length, transient sensitivity, all that stuff, the warp mode, the warp parameters. And I was like, what if you could modulate, like, okay, 2 beats, it's, slice by transient, 2 beats, slice by region. It's like, oh, wow, I could do that with this device. So I made this thing, and I'm just blown away by the results I keep getting, because I'll drag the most uninspiring loop from 10 years ago that's just super boring into this thing. And without fail, I can get something that's just interesting and that I want to work with. And that it has the aesthetic of being a sample chop, but it's unlike any sample chopping method I've ever tried or seen, because it's only possible through this method.
Mm.
And yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Like I've probably burned 2 or 3 hours like in a row just throwing loops into this thing, and I just kept resampling and saving all of them. But yeah, that recklessness.
Yeah. Yeah, not thinking too hard. Just twisting knobs, playing the sound, recording it,
Yeah.
messing it, doing it again if you want.
Yeah.
So your sample recycler is modulating like those warp parameters, like the grain, the flux, those types of things. Is that what you're talking
That
about?
as well as the slice by. Like you could have it be like modulating between region, transient, and whatever
Oh,
the
so
other
like
one was.
while you're
Beat.
playing it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, yeah. So, or you can even just drag in like quarter notes, just playing from C1 and just play quarter notes and then just change the modulation. And
Mm,
it's wild. Even just like using the transient sensitivity and modulating that, modulating that and just kind of
right.
dialing it into where, oh, right there, I like what it's doing. Because on a 3 minute sample, I mean, it's cutting from wildly like different points throughout the song and modulating. And you could make it snap like in a square type of step or make it kind of smooth. So yeah,
Cool.
there's so many different textures. But then somehow, because if you just have simple MIDI playing it on beat, you still get this implied pulse underneath, even if the rhythms that are being
Right.
triggered don't make sense, like in a vacuum, but played together, you get this thing that it makes sense. You can make it make sense.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of just jolting around
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I guess those are parameters that when they were making simpler, they were like, well, no one would want to really play with these in real time. Like,
Sure they would. Been dreaming about that for years.
yeah. Well, that was like kind of a new one with the warp parameters that you can now play with those
Mm-hmm.
and modulate them because in my class that I teach at for Berklee Online, we it's a sampling class. So one of the techniques is resample and then play around with those sliders while you're recording because that's the only way you could get the output of that
Yep.
because it doesn't get recorded as automation. So a lot of our class was just turn these things and knobs and sliders that you can't modulate while you're recording it and then just see what you get.
Yeah.
And it's got that recklessness, that playfulness
Yeah.
where you're gonna what you get is what you got. And now what? And that's where it gets fun. Now what are you gonna do?
Well, there's a magic in not being able to go back and keep retweaking the source. And if you have like a generative thing happening like that, like you're generating changes and it's not captured in any way other than if you resampled it, there's some really magical things that happen. And then you're confined to that in that form. And
Mhm.
to me, it's like because it takes more options and decisions, possible decisions out of the equation, it forces you forward. You're like, okay, well,
Right.
this is what it is. I can't change the patch. I can't, go back and change a million things, the MIDI, the velocity, all the things we can change. I just got to move forward. And we almost get decision fatigue a lot. And in our daily lives, we're very privileged, to live in a place where you can decide what you want to eat. You can decide, what do I want to watch? What do I want to do? We have so many choices. What am I going to wear? And that's overwhelming. It takes a lot of energy to do that. And with music, I think it's one of the most valuable, almost starting to get lost elements of the process is prior to computers, you had to just dial things in and commit to what it was. I mean, you could recall sessions and take notes and pictures, but it wasn't as like, oh yeah, we'll just figure it out later. It's like, no, no, no. Like we're dialed in, we're all present, we're focused. How do we feel about
Mm.
this EQ, this compression, whatever? And you're committing and moving on versus, yeah, the endless cycles we can go through of never ending tweaks.
Yeah, because you tweak one thing and then you realize the thing you did before now needs to be fixed so it
Yeah.
fits again. And
Yeah.
then you keep like kind of going in these circles where you're just endlessly trying to make everything fit together and never moving forward.
Yeah. No, exactly.
Yeah, blasting it down and just moving. It's it's more fun. It's more like being on a roller coaster or something, or you're just you got to react to what happens.
For
And
sure. I think it forces you to be present. it doesn't become a autopilot type of thing because you're gonna miss something. You have to like pay
Mm.
attention. Like, oh, that was tight, and then stop it and go back. Oh, that 2 bars right there. Something weird happened, but it was awesome, and
Yeah.
make things around that.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to play against that now. We'll have to work
Yeah,
with it.
right.
So now the next part is already getting put into focus because it's got to do something
Yeah,
in relationship to what happened.
yeah.
That's funny. You mentioned even just like we can choose what we want to eat. And I mean, sometimes my wife and I say this like when it's mealtime, it's like, oh, I just ate and we got to think about it again.
Yeah,
And it's such a luxury we have, but yeah, it wasn't, it was probably most of our existence as humans. It was like, hey, we got like, you know, these leaves we found. That's what we're eating today and
no,
tomorrow and until we find something else.
for real. And there's, people in the world right now who,
Yeah.
based on the resources they have around them, like I've been fortunate to travel a lot. I've been a lot of different places around the world. And, my brother at one point, he was living in Indonesia for a few years. He was in the Peace Corps.
Mm.
And that was one place I visited and got to stay in a super remote, house with him and his host family. And yeah, it was, same thing every day, same like exact thing every day. And that was just his experience in this particular place. But to make me aware that even any people in the world and to really see that and experience that puts in perspective. It changed a lot about, I don't know, my attitudes about, at least in Western cultures, um
Mm.
and what privileges we have, and seeing them for being privileges. It's a choice. If you have a choice to be vegan or a choice to be vegetarian or a choice to eat organic or eat whatever, I mean, it's privilege for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely perspective changing, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
I read a quote today that was, um, we're not grateful because we're happy because we're grateful.
Mm, that's a good quote.
Yeah, it's stuck in my head. And because there really is so much to be grateful for, and therefore it makes you feel happy. But
Yeah,
I think sometimes, yeah, we get it backwards that we need to be happy first and then we can be grateful. And all these problems we're talking about, I mean, in terms of music, it gets really silly when you start thinking about more serious things in
yeah, for sure.
like you said, food and just those choices.
Yeah, and it's
We have the luxury of whining about the fact that we have to pick what we're going to eat for this next meal
yeah,
that's virtually guaranteed to us.
yeah, yeah. And it's easy to overlook that or to let stress of whatever's going on that day or that week
Mm.
um to kind of overshadow that. But I think it is healthy, and honestly, in my life has helped bring more of the things I've wanted and worked towards by focusing on what I'm grateful for and not
Mm.
focusing on, oh, I don't have this yet, I'm not there yet. But slowly but surely, those things come and they go, and at a certain point you, or at least for me, kind of realize that it is the process, and working through that and recognizing what you're grateful for, that brings happiness for sure.
Mm.
Yeah. I've even achieved things in the weirdest circumstances. It was something that you thought you wanted, and then in a certain lighter circumstance, it doesn't bring necessarily the feeling or whatever you were expecting, satisfaction or achievement. And so it kind of makes you question like where that sense of happiness comes from. So I for me it's the process, and staying grateful.
Mm.
Yeah,
Have you found that, like musically, that's happened for you? Maybe you thought you wanted something or you're working towards something and then.
definitely. Definitely. Um I remember one time, this is maybe 7 or 8 years ago, my favorite music label, still one of my favorite music labels of all time, reached out for me to do a project with them. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is like dream come true. And it happened to be a really difficult transitional time in my life when that all happened. And so here I was with the opportunity to do something that I wanted. You know, I've been working towards that, put a lot of time in, a lot of effort, a lot of sacrifice. And on the other hand, my life and my health needed immediate attention.
Mm.
So I, it was hard, but after a couple months, I just, reached back out to the head of the label and said, hey, I really appreciate this opportunity, but I think right now I need to take care of some things in my life and get that sorted out. And I did, and thankfully I don't live with any regrets in my life or what ifs so much. I try to let go of those things. Um, but at the time it was difficult to put my health and my mental health and my immediate just security and work and everything, because I just decided to go through a big change, change in where I was working and what I was doing exactly with my time. And I'm grateful that I went down the path that I went down, because I got to improve and enjoy in so many other ways and lead to so many other things that I wanted in life. And it's just on a different scale and a different place and a different time.
Mm.
But but yeah, it's hopefully I answers your question. It's definitely happened before.
Yeah, well, I think it's a great point because sometimes we think we know what we want, but we don't always know what it means to have that. And I mean, I think obviously, like if you need to take care of yourself and your health, you must have made the right decision because you can't do that stuff if you don't have
No,
all that other stuff anyway.
no, for sure.
And sometimes getting those things only worsens, puts other things out of balance, and
Yep.
makes it even harder to do. But we don't always know what like the other side of our dreams are and the things we want. Like you, for me, like I think about like being in like a band, touring. Like I thought for a long time that's what I wanted to do. Like no doubt about it. Until I kind of started doing it a little bit. Really small things like self-booked tours down the East Coast for like 2 weeks that were a lot of fun. I mean, great times with your friends, but also really difficult on your body, on your health, on your. I mean, you're away from home, so that I realized right pretty quickly. Like I like being home, and things you'd have to give up to do that. Relationships, like having a pet, even
Oh yeah.
um,
Oh yeah.
settling down on some level, having like a job. You can't really have that stuff, and all the like I can remember coming back from those tours and being not exactly sick for like 2 weeks afterwards, but the body needed some time to recover, and um, it was really fun to get to do. But by the end of it, it was like I'm good. I see what this is, and maybe it's not what I want. I don't want to go down that road any further.
Yeah, and I think it's a healthy realization to have and to experience things firsthand, and be okay with challenging or questioning what you initially think you want, and realizing it's you don't have to be stubborn. Like, no, I said I'm
Mm.
going to do this. If there's something inside of you, or legitimate concerns or reasons why you don't want to do something, then it's good to experience that so you know what you don't want to do. Like I've done plenty of things enough to know that I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
and on the other hand, sometimes things you don't realize you wanted to do,
yeah.
you start
Yeah. Yeah.
doing it and you're like, well, hey, that's actually kind of cool. This is got more to it than I expected. You don't see that, I guess. If you're, suppose you go on Instagram and you're looking at maybe like some of your favorite artists, they're on tour, and you see them from behind in front of like legions of fans. It looks
Yeah.
amazing. You see the get-togethers and all that. But yeah, the other stuff you don't necessarily see, and that can be that's the other side of the coin, and you kind of need to be open to stuff. I guess is what you're saying, really. Like, realize that there are sometimes we don't really know what we want until we're in it a lot of
Yeah.
the times. And it's
That's a,
okay to change. Like, you got to be driven for a lot of these things, but notice the signs too if it's saying like this is not for you.
for sure. You've been saying some bars, Brian. I should be writing these down. You got like great song lyrics you're just saying
Oh
like
yeah.
conversationally.
That's something I like to do actually, like when I hear like people say things.
Oh yeah.
I've got like lists of that stuff
Same.
for movies,
Yeah.
you know. Sometimes even misheard song lyrics where it's like, oh, I thought he said that, but okay, I'm gonna make it mine now.
uh, I need to write a song called Jason Waterfalls. That TLC Waterfalls. Thought it was Jason at one point.
Oh yeah, that's
So
funny.
yeah, a little shout out. We should write Jason Waterfalls.
Jason Waterfalls. Yeah, sounds like a tragic hero of some kind.
He's a crybaby.
He's a crybaby. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm picturing him like falling from some great heights or something.
Oh no, okay, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny where inspiration comes from, right? Like,
I think
how do you harness that inspiration? I mean, you do a lot of really cool stuff too. So, like, it's like whether it's videos, tutorials, or just music. How do you balance this? This is something I've been trying to figure out my whole life.
like harnessing inspiration.
Yeah, and knowing like what to work on, what
Mm.
roads to go down.
I mean, I'm so obsessive that I don't really have the space to obsess over too many things at once. So I'll
Hmm.
have some primary thing or concept that I'm obsessed with, meaning like I'm spending every little nook and cranny chunk of 15 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, early in the morning, late, middle of the day, whatever, things that you just can't stop, but you just, it's like it's just calling you to keep doing that.
Hmm.
And that's just always on, and I don't want that to turn off. It's just a curiosity about things and an interest in things. And I love, you know, comedy. I love laughing. I love being sarcastic. And I think just the mindset of hearing puns and jokes and like mispronouncing signs driving around LA and just, I don't know, always having that slightly step back, not so serious, like absorption of my environment, but also being very observant and aware. It's things will just pop out at you left and right all the time. Funny
Hmm.
things, emotional things, profound things. And I think being as present as possible in whatever I'm doing allows me to notice those things. And I mean, if it's, you know, super recognizable or noteworthy or something, I write all that down or pull out a voice note or something like that to come back to later. But yeah, I don't think I have the answer of how to balance because I think it's such a part of my life, just thinking about things not for what they look like or what they sound like, but what they could be, or playing some narrative or joke or relating to some idea. And my mind just kind of always stays there. And in terms of balancing, like when to step away and touch grass, so to speak, just do something that is completely outside of music and technology and creativity, that's more of a conscious thing. Like that's the thing that takes planning and effort. I mean, I try to go to the gym every day in the morning, at least, just so I can balance out all the stationary work that this requires. Um, and then, and I love going outside. I just took a road trip up to near Seattle to see my family. We're on spring break, so yeah, that was a big reminder for me to like at least once a week go out and go on a hike, go
Yeah.
do something where the whole point is that thing. It's not to get an adapter for this. It's not to, check out this restaurant or whatever. It's just to be outside.
Mm.
And that's about the most balance I get outside of my daily routine is, that's, yeah, what I enjoy just happens to be what I do, for a living. So,
Well, that's a great thing. And I don't think it takes a lot. Like what you said. I mean, if you're going to the gym and taking a hike a couple times a week, that's powerful. It's enough to keep things in balance and perspective and
yeah.
take you away. Sometimes just stepping away. I mean, I've even read an article recently about music students. I think they were pianists that were practicing, and they had a group that would just practice, practice, practice for hours and hours and hours, and then another group that would take breaks. And the group that took breaks were just like so much better off in the long haul. They were remembering stuff better. They were playing. They were trying to prove that the brain is still kind of working even when you're not.
Mhm.
I guess it's like, I don't know, like pottery in a kiln or something like that. Like
Yeah.
it's gotta solidify, um, but it never becomes anything if you're just constantly molding it.
Right.
But just that little bit can be, I mean, that happens like even when I'm making music, just stepping outside for a couple minutes um, is enough to refresh and open things up.
Yeah. Balance is definitely huge, especially at this point in my life. I've had times when you just grind. You're up late, you're up early, you're up all the time, you're everywhere, you're at all the shows, you're meeting tons of people, making connections when you can. And that's a beautiful thing. And I think it's important, especially in an industry like this, to go meet people, go outside
Mm.
and develop real connections. See if you can volunteer, intern, do whatever just to start the process. But yeah, at this point in my life, kind of like you're saying with, the group that took breaks and just sounding better, I think balance and taking a break where that's the plan and that's the point helps me to not feel like I'm should be doing something else. Because
Mm.
I
Mm.
think a lot of us, in our culture, we pride hard work, we pride the grind and hustling, and you have to survive and to make it. It takes a lot of work. But at the same time, it's like you, I mean, physically, literally need to rest. And I think also on the metaphysical side of it, you get a fresher perspective at more regular intervals versus like you're going so hard on something every day that I don't know, you're just going through it to get through it, or you're trying to force it at times. And it's good to push yourself in terms of the volume of work that you can do, like in short intervals, and if you've never really gone down the kind of militant, sports drill type of experience, I think everyone should at some point, absolutely, and keep that like a regular interval thing. Because you take too much time on things, I don't know, you try to make it perfect versus if you, let's say, try to write a song a day for 30 days versus working on one song for 30 days straight, you're going to progress a lot more doing the one
Yeah.
song a day for 30 days. You're going to take more risks. You're going to get way further along in your confidence, trying things, as well as just exercising like the creative mechanics of starting with nothing and finishing a song. But to do that, you have to let go of perfection. You have to let go
Mm.
of things being so controlled almost, and just nope, every day, whatever, 30 minutes, like put a timer on it and knock it out. And that is strenuous and it can be stressful, but I think it really does something to advance you and to give you confidence and to help a lot when you go back to your, normal routine of working on things. So yeah, it's like a balance, like with most things in life, and
Mm,
having regular rest, but also from time to time pushing yourself beyond what you normally do, just for the sake of advancing and risk taking and pushing yourself forward. And if you can isolate that on a specific skill, let's say you've been doing a lot of things for a lot of time, focus on the thing you're the worst at. Like I'm
mm,
pretty terrible at like actually playing bass. So I would love to sit down and every day for 30 days, I'm going to learn a different bass part. I'm going to sit down for 30 minutes. I'm going to, okay, I got this part, and just internalize. And then when I walk away, go back, to my normal creative routine or whatever, I now have embedded this whole thing in me I can draw from.
mhm. I'm with you on that. I think the drops in the bucket consistently are the way to go.
Yeah.
Um, I the one big haul like once a week compared to every day
Yeah.
is, there's no comparison really because you're going into that frame of thinking over and over again.
Yeah.
And even like you said, like if it's a half hour, like to be okay with it being a short period of time.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to make it some extreme effort every single day, that's going to burn you out too.
For
You
sure.
can't really do that either. You need that recovery.
Yeah. And I mean, in our lives, we have like a few main things that is like most important. And let's say your career or music is one of them. And then you have your health and your relationships. And that's pretty much it. And how you divide your time between them. So when you go on too long of a stretch of grinding out work stuff, inherently you're you're sacrificing from either your personal health or your relationships with your loved ones or both.
Mm,
So yeah, taking the time to give energy where it is necessary in kind of equal amounts helps to not let any one of them kind of fall, you know.
mm. Yeah, and I agree wholeheartedly with you saying you'll take more chances, you'll be more experimental even. I
Yeah.
know when I'm doing these like kind of more frequent things where we're making more music, you just get a little crazy. Like, let's try something weird today. But if I have like one song I'm trying to work on, I'm so careful with it,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and I don't take any chances. And half the time it comes out bland for that.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a value in investing some time and really crafting something. But I've really just, I think I just enjoy the other way so much more anyway. The kind of blasting through, and this was the song when I did that crazy thing. This is the one where, oh yeah, I was trying this. And I feel just almost more satisfied hearing it, even.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about the time frame that we sit with certain feelings, like let's say you just ate an amazing lunch spot. And you're just like, wow, that was so good. Maybe an hour later, 2 hours later, you're into something else, you kind of forget about it. Or I don't know, let's say there's a movie you saw or something you can't wait that's coming up, and
Mm,
it's got your mood elevated in some certain way. So when you're writing and you're inspired and you feel excited about something, if you drag that out too long, and you're just, oh, this is cool, and then you nitpick out everything that made it feel amazing is now kind of just withered away. Versus if you just keep it short, write it, it stays as most like contained in the pure feeling that you felt, when it felt inspiring. If you get it done, relatively quickly, I feel like there's less time and disconnect versus like you trying to rejoin or come back and finish some initial thing too many days on end and you didn't fully flesh out the idea to begin with, it's hard to match, you know, the energy and to get back into that feeling. So it's maybe more of an honest snapshot in time of a certain feeling when you're able to knock it out just while you're feeling it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I've heard like Neil Young talk about that. When he records, say with like Crazy Horse, he doesn't let them play the songs too many times.
Yeah.
He doesn't want it to get too much of, he wants it to be more of a reaction
Yeah.
to what's going on than like this performance and eventually like recreation of the reaction that you initially had,
Right.
you know? So it's interesting. Um, you mentioned also just in, I guess, in this vein of experimenting and kind of having fun and being in that emotional moment, you kind of talked a little bit about what it is to be human. This is before we
Mm.
started speaking or
Mm.
recording.
You read
Here
my
we
thoughts.
are.
I knew you were reading my thoughts before we started speaking.
Yeah. Well, it's like AI stuff is just getting wild. And I deal with this a lot as a high school English teacher, where they can pretty much do every assignment in every subject using AI. They take a
Yeah.
picture of the worksheet or write the paper.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing I've been able to come up with so far that they can't have it do is stand up in front of the class and talk to the class. So in one of my classes, we're doing just like presentations and we're like, use AI, use it to help you make it more interesting and more exciting. Um, and yeah, that's a whole other can of worms, I guess. But the point is like, like we said, with our tools, there's so much we can do, right? And like the quality is like you get GarageBand and you start playing around with it. It sounds 100 times better than like what I did on my 4-track when I was a teenager. Um, but now you can there's software you just push the button and it makes the music for you.
Right.
And I had Nick McCarron from Serato on, and he was talking about their plugin that they came out with, Hex Effects.
Yeah.
And he mentioned this to me, and it just really stuck. Where as a software designer, you have to know like how easy you're gonna make it for everybody, right? Like Ableton now inside of Live, we've got the MIDI tools and the generators, and some of them will generate parts for you and rhythms, but they didn't go the full route of all AI make the song for you.
Mm.
I mean, there are websites that are already there. How are you feeling about all this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. I feel a mixture of things. At
Okay.
first, I probably felt, like maybe a couple years ago when this was becoming more of a mainstream kind of occurrence when people are posting songs they're making and Suno's happening and I was getting pretty wild. And yeah, I at first had very mixed feelings and maybe felt a little insecure for a moment in time where it was like, well, damn, like what does that mean for, artists and musicians? And I mean, being a teacher and working with young people, I'm fortunate to have conversations like this kind of a lot. And one thing that's come up and one thing that I've landed on is just asking yourself what what role music serves in our lives, number one. And number two is the extent to which humans participate in the creation or performing of music or experiencing of music, like attending a concert or something like that. And to me, whether you have music that was created entirely by AI or a person, what's going to resonate with people is like, and if we're just looking at like all-time universal songs that speak to everybody, things that they play at birthdays, weddings, funerals type of songs, still need some element of nuance and context that resonates strongly with us. So it just kind of put me in this mindset of like, do people who consume music value more just the music itself, or is it more so the experience associated with it? And it got me thinking about, well, does this all mean that humans are going to cease to provide experiences that have music present? And it's like, no, no, it's still valuable to participate in watching a concert. It's still valuable and meaningful and exciting to witness someone sing or play guitar or an instrument in front of you. So I think if you look at music as just the product of recording, maybe it's more daunting than if you look at music for everything else it is as well. Where you can look at, I mean, one of the biggest ways artists make money now is, touring, doing live shows and selling merch and stuff. And, that's still going to be a thing. Does that mean we might have an AI robot or not robot projection tour? And I don't know. And I don't know if that would ever override or I don't know, be more valuable of an experience than seeing a person, or is it something that we can exist in together, which is ultimately, I mean, what I'd like to see and what I think is going to happen. We're probably going to see successful experiences of an artist doing a tour with an amazing light show and setup where there's no human involved ever except for whoever owns the IP or the master recordings, you know what I mean? But should that detour us, or does that compromise the value of music performed by humans? I don't think so, because it was a human first thing. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Now, the other thing is, the thing that worries me, if there was something to worry me, is that if we become too reliant on things like ChatGPT or Gemini or Sora or Suno or, sure I'm missing 1,000 of them, then you might lose the ability to do the thing yourself, to where you're only able to perform or only able to do your job or only able to be on with this tool, this supplemental thing versus being the thing. So I think musicians and real artists and real writers still maintain their value, because I like thinking about the example of, let's imagine you're a young person coming up in the world right now, and you're like, for me, if I was a young boy and I wanted to talk to a girl who I had a crush on, and I had ChatGPT there helping me along the way, and maybe it gets me somewhere and we land a date to go out for ice cream. What are you going to do when it comes time to actually have a conversation and be present? We're either going to get to a point where there's just an accepted middle thing, right? Like, oh, what's your favorite movie? Respond. I don't know if that'll be normalized. I hope not. I have a feeling it would be a smoother encounter overall if you were able to just be present and have a conversation. And I think the exact same is true with music. If people have aspirations of performing and doing tours and being artists, well, guess what? You need to be able to do that in front of people. And oh, let's say you want to get into rooms, you want to write, you want to come to LA and get into the studio scene. I mean, yeah, it's a useful tool, but what are you going to do when you're in front of people and they're all singing and throwing in melodies and you're typing into Suno or something? I mean, I don't know. It's, to me, that's the wall where it's like, I don't think it could break through to that. I don't
Mm.
think there's going to be, if Suno or ChatGPT or something is the main source of creating music, then there won't be these rooms where people are making music. And anyways, still think it's valuable if you want to be a musician, you want to be an artist, you want to be a producer, to learn the language, and that's kind of what it boils down to. And I definitely don't think people should be scared or, oh, why should I do music if, this all takes over and things changes? Well, you shouldn't be doing anything with music if you don't love it to begin with. Because if you're in it to just try and make a bunch of money, I mean, you should go be a lawyer or something, you know?
That's what I tell people too. Like, there's a lot smarter ways to do this than,
Be a dentist or a
yeah,
plumber. You'd probably be way more successful in a guaranteed fashion. Because in this
yeah.
world, you have to be okay with uncertainty. And to me, it's still very important to be about, music and be a musician, speak the language.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's a great answer. I have come to similar conclusions on a lot of that. I mean, for one, it will never be as fun to click the button as it is to make it yourself, right? To like
Right.
create the song. In my classes at school, and maybe we said this also before we hit record, but they're high school English students that aren't choosing to be there and aren't already excited about it. So getting them to understand that joy of writing something that makes you feel something and makes you feel proud is a lot harder. And they can say like, why should I do that if this computer can do it? Just like I would think when I was a kid, why should I learn this if my graphing calculator can do it for me?
Right.
This similar
Right.
thought. But as far as like something, let's assume like music that we've already established we like doing, it can never take that from us, I don't think. Just the joy of sitting with your guitar, sitting with a push, sitting with anything, and coming up with something on your own is, it's a really unique joy. It's a wonderful thing we have that I don't see myself getting by doing a really good prompt and getting something that is, still great.
No, and it's interesting you say that because I've been curious about people who maybe get interested in music production through something like using an AI thing. Because
Hmm.
I think inherently, when people develop an interest in something, we like to get more involved or go a little deeper with it, right? There's the surface level. As a kid, your mom, we're not buying you a drum set. This might just be a fad. This might be a phase. So when maybe for young people, it's, oh, I'm on Suno. Oh, I made a whole bunch of music, but you hit a wall of limitation. It's not quite what I want. Or, it's not quite, or I wish I could change this little thing. And maybe it'll act as an invitation for even more people to get involved with music production and in this weird way open up the door more because of the absolute accessibility of putting in a prompt. And maybe that level of engagement will invite more people to eventually get to the point they want to open up Ableton or open up a DAW. But yeah, who knows? It's all really interesting.
Well, I think loops have done that, like loop packs, splice, or even just like when you open GarageBand, you can use the Apple loops and just compose a song through, just dragging stuff in, which isn't probably for a lot of people like a very high level of music writing, but it's the door, for someone that has no other way, right?
Right.
So it's really cool for that. So if the prompt, oh, it's kind of cool, I made this song. Wouldn't it be awesome if like I made the beat too? And
Yeah.
you kind of see how that would pull people in. So I hope that happens, and I think it probably would for people that are interested.
Yeah.
I'm also
Yeah.
feeling like so much around, like you kind of got into this, but so much around why we love music is the story, the art, the artist, the situation it was written in, the time period it came from, what was going on in the world. And
Yep.
the fashion, even like probably said this here on the show before, but like, when I was a teenager, I started wearing like flannel shirts and ripped jeans because I liked grunge.
Yeah,
I liked what those bands stood for, which is all outside of the actual recording that an AI might be able to produce one day.
sure.
So I think that stuff too is what we really have to maybe lean into a little bit, like our own humanity.
I mean, yeah. No, that's beautiful. Lean into
Seeing
our
it
own
in some,
humanity.
yeah, well, you see it in some like music, right? Lo-fi stuff is kind of got, it's not as clean as recordings were.
Yep.
Um, Even in like fashion, like you start seeing like models not wearing makeup or
Mm,
not getting photoshopped as much and just kind of being a little more real,
yep.
exposing things with not as polished, I guess, because now we can get polished.
Yep.
For a long time, it was like the aspiration. Oh man, this is how I felt as a kid recording. Like, I want my stuff to sound really polished and professional. And then it did. And then I'm like, well, I want it to sound old and dirty again.
No, it's true. I have this beautiful little piece of hardware, this chroma console, just to make things sound old and dirty.
Oh, right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that little
That's its
guy.
job. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I used to be an audio engineer at it's like a video production company, and one of my director friends, he was a camera guy for a lot of years. He was talking about, man, do you know how long it took to get like a true black point in digital video? And right after we get there, everyone's washing it back out and just
Yeah.
making it look faded. He's like, I don't get it. We just, but it's pretty funny. I thought about, I mean, slightly related, not super related, but music playback mediums. We can't avoid these systems that have skips in them. We we went from playing music in person to then it's on okay a vinyl record and that can scratch and be wobbly and needle can jump whatever. And then we got into 8 tracks and cassette and okay tape could get chewed up. And then we got CDs, oh, but it could be scratched and it skips. And then there's MP3 players and that was great. It was like okay, no skipping. And then now it's streaming. And then the service is spotty and we
Yeah.
we can't avoid just constantly slightly going 2 steps back in certain
Mm.
ways. And it's funny.
Yeah. It is funny. But we kind of have grown to like that too.
I guess
That
so. I guess so.
something about it. I guess it's the physicality of it, maybe. There's something cool about things that we're like, we don't have things anymore. It's all stuff. Like one thing you mentioned the Chroma console, like it's right there. And I mean, you can really do most of that inside your computer,
Hmm.
right? Like I don't think there's anything in there that we probably don't have multiple roads in the computer to do, but the fact that it's like there and you can play with it in real time is it's tangible. All my plugins, like you forget about them half the time because they're nowhere. They're just
Yeah.
hiding in these digital folders.
Yeah. No, it's true. And I think the other thing too is a lot of racks in Ableton that I like to make. I take visual elements away. So it's just macro knobs and a lot of them because I love that about hardware
Mm,
is, I mean, people have the whole digital versus analog, conversations in every direction. And one element of that though is we're not making decisions so much on what we see. It's very simplified, like, oh, some numbers on a knob, but ultimately you're listening way more than you're like looking at a FFT graph on an EQ or
yeah.
something. And That's also extremely valuable, and it's important to me just to force myself to only use my ears and to not look at it.
Mm. With the macros, it can be fun for me to give them names that are a little abstract, like underwater. And that might be like reverb and a filter or something, but calling it underwater or calling it like magic dust or something, you know, that's one thing I loved about the OP1 is like you got these four knobs and it's just changing a picture around.
Yeah,
And you're like, you don't really know what's going on. You
yeah,
might have like, it's kind of like a filter or it's kind of like this or that, but ultimately you're just listening
right.
and I like that a lot because like you said, you're making music like with your eyes, which is almost doesn't make a lot of sense.
Oh, like even if I'm playing drums, because that's what started it all for me as a kid. Like I'm not staring at every drum I'm playing. I can look anywhere. I don't need to see what I'm doing. And a
Yeah.
good guitar player, would not say I'm good enough at guitar to not look. I need to look still a little bit, but a good guitar player, they don't need to look. Piano player, they don't need to look. And with
Mm.
Ableton, any DAW, so it's Ableton, the computer, you got to look.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. You kind of got to know what you're looking at.
yeah.
Although they're doing a lot for the accessibility, which is cool.
No, it's
I've heard
crazy.
from some people that have some visual impairments that are like, this is nice.
Yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah, I try to remind people of that when they're getting worked up about the shortcuts changing. I'm like, it's for a good cause. This is
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a good
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Man.
Well, I might be ready to cook some food here soon. I think I'm getting
Yeah.
hungry.
I hear you. My dog was licking my leg. I think she fell back asleep somewhere,
Yeah.
but she's ready to go too. Dude, it's great talking to you, man.
No,
Really.
likewise. Thank you so
Uh,
much.
I'm glad we got to meet in person and then talk here. Like I've said, I've enjoyed your stuff. I got a real big kick out of you and Chuck doing kind of the April Fool's video. I think you guys called it two things instead of one thing, and
Yeah.
you're kind
Yeah.
of like arguing back and forth with each other.
That was so much fun. There was some moments where I was like, Chuck, you sure you want me to push you off screen a little bit? He's like, oh no, it'd be hilarious. It's like, cause my character, it's like, this is who I'm being. So yeah, for sure, do it. All right. So there's like little moments where just making sure that we're, on the same page.
We're cool,
And
yeah.
yeah. And the hardest part is we just kept laughing. One or both of us couldn't hold it. Like we kept breaking. So
Yeah.
that was a good time. We had, strangely enough, we had some requests to do more tutorials because one person was like, "Whoa, I never thought to do that. Like, that's really tight. You should do more
Huh.
tutorials like this." I was like, "Oh, okay." I mean, but I mean, infotainment, I think, does really well.
Yeah.
So,
It's actually not a bad format because so much of what we talk about is you contradict yourself in the next sentence, right?
oh yeah,
I mean, we were saying this, break the rules, learn the rules, break them.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so to have these kind of characters that are representing that, and also just when you play music with people, there's so much of that sort of stuff that can happen.
Oh
If
man, yeah. I'm glad that translated because that was kind of the point was like, we could show multiple ways of doing something when ultimately it's going to turn out the same or maybe just not. It's not that big of a deal. It's not worth
yeah,
getting so worked up about, and just kind of making that part of the satire is just yeah. Initially, one idea was just to have it be exact opposite, like split screen, voices synced up. It was just too specific where it was exact opposite for like mixing a kick. Like I
mm.
always boost up, I never boost, and we're doing inverted things, but then ending up at like the exact same sound.
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you can search around and definitely get that conflicting information.
Well, yeah, and I don't know. There's like, part of the maybe just the internet culture. I don't see this as much in real life, but it is there. Is people make it a part of their identity a lot. Like, understanding the technical book, how things are, and nope, this is what, like, I'm sure you've had wild things said at or about you, and I've certainly experienced the same when people, I don't know, they take it so seriously. And it's like,
Mm,
it's not that serious. I mean, and I don't want to detract or take away from what people identify with. And if you are a modular synth signal flow guru diehard and that's what you live for, that's cool. But I like people and
mm,
working with people and being around people and understanding that doesn't matter so much to just have to be so right all the time. And I don't
yeah.
know. That's one part about internet production culture I wish was a little different. It can be a little negative, all tense and shit. And I don't know.
Well, actually, what you
Yeah.
said here, you meant
Yeah. And it's
not all
like,
synthesizers use oscillators, they're sound generators.
and it's like, great, you're right. And then we walk away
Yeah,
and it's like, I'm going to go enjoy my life. And like, I don't know. I hope you're all right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've come to really appreciate this thought as as a band member. Playing in a band. We started playing together like about 5 years ago, and I hadn't played in a band for a few years. But I realized the most important thing here is the relationship we have
Mm-hmm.
as a band,
Mm-hmm.
as the hang, getting together.
Yes.
The music. Look, especially nowadays, because if I want to do it all my way, I can do that all by myself. So there's no need to be some strict enforcer of everyone else's parts, and just if it goes a different way, it goes a different way. Like, the point is, like, we're having fun playing music together, not that my part is this way and your part is that way,
Right.
and that we're doing it this way or not, or the highway, any of that kind of stuff.
That's a that's a reggae tone in the piano. We're doing this genre. We can't do that. It's
Yeah,
like,
nope, can't do it. I'm mad.
okay.
The band breaks up.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm going to put links to all your stuff. The Push course is awesome, shapes and progressions. I really do recommend it. And what's cool about it too is you don't even have to go through it just once. Like, you can come back to it as like an exercise even.
For sure.
And I think you kind of opened my mind to just the concept of inversions, where you're just like, we'll move this up an octave, and now we have an inversion. We'll move this one down an octave. And I don't think I ever really thought about it quite that way.
Yeah.
It's very makes perfect sense, but maybe it's something about seeing it too on Push
Yeah.
that there's a lot of dots connected for me watching it. I think it's a really great resource, and so I'll put a link to that. I'll put links to your Instagram.
Well, thank
Is there
you.
any place you want to direct people just now?
No, I mean just the links I already sent you. I've got also just some free, like a demo of the class you're referring to, and
Yeah.
one of a little bit, not quite as, it's not interactive, but I put one out before this class that is like level, like day one. Like, I don't know note names on a piano, what is a scale, and it's like super super introductory. Because I had a lot of people reach out over time just saying like, hey, I don't have, never played an instrument, no music theory experience, could I learn to play push? So it just got me thinking about, well, how can I make this accessible to everyone? So there's some free stuff if people are like brand new. And then yeah, the paid one is just super extensive. There's the ebook, the interactive Ableton sessions, and it's compatible
Hmm.
back to like version 10. Um,
Nice.
and yeah, I'm happy to throw like a discount code too, for people from your audience.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah.
put that in too. Thanks. That's really nice.
Of course, yeah.
Well, cool, Jamie. Thanks so much. And yeah, hopefully we'll do this again sometime. Best of
Absolutely.
luck
I
to you with everything.
appreciate you having me. Best of luck to you as well. And next time I'll get my Riverside business sorted out. That was, sorry for the delay.
Nah, it's all good. Thanks, man. And thank you for listening. You guys have a great day. Thank you for listening to the Music Production Podcast. If you want to help support the show, the best thing you can do is tell a friend, someone you think that would enjoy the show. I'd also love it if you could leave a review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to support my work, you can go to brianfunk.com. I've got tons of Ableton Live packs, tutorials, samples. You can check out my book, The 5-Minute Music Producer, which gives you 365 short music-making activities to help you get started, stay inspired, and finish more music. And there's also the Music Production Club, where you get my latest releases as soon as they're finished. It gives you access to a community of like-minded people who are making music and sharing ideas. You can share your music, find new collaborators, and participate in our live meetings where we set up some kind of musical challenge and then make music together and share our results at the end. That's the Music Production Club. It's a lot of fun, and you can find that and everything that I do at brianfunk.com. Thanks again for listening to the show, and have a great day.